Welcome to the Aging Well Firefighter, the podcast about thriving under stress, aging with purpose, and taking care of the people who take care of others, not just in the emergency services, but in everyday life. Whether you're on the front lines or standing with us, I'm here to help you fight wisely and age bravely. Today I want to talk about getting back on the wagon. And if you've ever fallen off of a fitness routine or nutrition habits or whatever version of taking care of yourself you had going on, you already know this is true, that getting started is hard. But getting started again is harder. Because the second time around, you're not just dealing with the workout, you're dealing with the memory of who you used to be. You remember what you used to lift. You remember how far you used to run. You remember how your gear and your clothes used to fit. And being the one who could go hard, recover fast, and show up the next day ready to do it again. And now maybe you're staring at your shoes or your bike or the weights in your basement or your gym membership, thinking, I used to be able to do this. Yep. And milk used to be a quarter. I heard a fitness coach say that once at a live seminar, and it stuck with me because it's funny, but it also stings. Because, yeah, you used to be able to do certain things. But the question is, what can you do now? I'm not meaning that as an insult or a downgrade. It's not a reason to beat yourself up. I'm giving you that as a size up. And in the fire service, we understand the idea of a size up. We don't roll up on a scene and say, well, this structure fire reminds me of one I had 12 years ago, so I'm just going to use that same plan we did then. No. We look at what's actually in front of us, the current conditions, the known hazards. What resources do we have available? What are the life safety concerns? Are we paying attention to the fire behavior? Are we reading the smoke? What's our water supply like? Staffing, weather, construction, all of it. Fitness is no different. But there's part of this that a lot of people miss. When we say start where you are, not where you were, most people hear that as a purely physical assessment. How much can I lift now? How far can I run now? How many push-ups can I do now? And yeah, that matters. I'm not saying ignore what your current capacity is. And please do not go out and try to deadlift your old max after 2 years of stress eating, poor sleep, and thinking about stretching, but never actually doing it. That's not training. That's an injury waiting to happen. No, where you are is not just your current fitness level. It's your current life, your current schedule, and your current stress load. It's how you're currently sleeping. It's how your current family responsibilities are shaped. It's your current mental and emotional bandwidth and your current priorities. And maybe most importantly, your current patterns. Because the real question might not be, how out of shape am I? The real question might be, what changed in my life that made stopping easier than continuing? And there's a gap. A lot of people, when they fall off the fitness wagon, immediately go looking for a new plan or a new program. But a new plan won't fix an old pattern if the old pattern is still running the show. If your schedule changed and your training never adapted, your problem might not be discipline. If your family responsibilities increased and your workouts still require the same time commitment they used to, your problem might not be laziness. If your mental health took a hit and your motivation disappeared, your problem might not be character. And if your old training identity depended on doing big, impressive workouts, and now all you can realistically fit in is 20 minutes, the problem might not be your body. The problem might be that your old system was designed for a version of your life that no longer exists. And that's not failure, that's just outdated tactics. And this is where I think we need to be careful with the whole grind and hustle approach to fitness because, yeah, effort matters and consistency matters, discipline matters. But if every restart requires you to light yourself on fire emotionally and drag yourself uphill like Sisyphus pushing the boulder, you might want to stop and ask, am I really weak? Or am I just pushing the wrong boulder up the wrong hill? Because if you keep trying to brute force your way back into a routine, but the same conflict or scheduling issue or the same stress trigger is still sitting there waiting for you, there's a good chance that boulder is just going to roll right back down. And then what happens? You probably blame yourself again. Oh, I just can't stick with anything, I guess. Or I'm too far out of shape. Or, oh, I'm just getting too old. No, let's challenge that. You're not broken. Maybe your plan just doesn't match your reality. Maybe it's not that you're undisciplined. Maybe it's just that your environment is full of friction. Maybe you're not lazy. Maybe you're just exhausted. And maybe you're not hopelessly out of shape. Maybe you're deconditioned. I like that word much better. Deconditioned. Because out of shape sounds like a crushed soda can in a parking lot. Once it's bent and smashed, that is what it is now. You might as well just toss it in the recycling bin and move on. But deconditioned, that sounds more like a classic car that's been sitting in the garage. It probably needs some work. Maybe the tires are low, or the battery's dead, or it needs new gas. Maybe you're not going to take it straight out of the highway and open it up on day one, but that doesn't mean it's junk. It means it needs to be reconditioned. And that is a completely different mindset. That says there is a path back to function. Maybe not the exact same as before, maybe not as fast or as flashy, but useful and capable and worth it. And for first responders, especially, that matters because we're not training for beach photos or leaderboard screenshots. We're training for the job. We're training for stairs and dragging a hose and moving heavy patients. We're training for awkward lifts out of tight areas. We're training for long nights and overtime. And we're training for our family waiting at home and for the life we want to have after the job stops giving us a pager and a paycheck. So, yes, start moving again. But don't confuse start moving with recreate your peak years by next Thursday, because that's where people get into trouble. They remember an old version of themselves and try to train like the person that has that same level of recovery, that same training schedule, the same stress level, and the same joints. That's not courage. That's not hustle. That's bad math. And I've lived some of this personally. For a long time, I was known locally as that running guy. And I guess I kind of still am, even though my running consistency and mileage over the last few years have taken a pretty big nosedive. I've done over a dozen half iron triathlons. I've done over a dozen marathons and longer races too, up to 50-mile ultra marathons. I've even won some medals. Running was a big part of my identity. But then life shifted. My career path changed. I went from being a full time self employed personal trainer with fire and EMS as more of a side hustle and being able to control my own schedule to working full time in EMS and at a training center, with personal training becoming more of the side hustle. And that was a big pivot for me. My sleep schedule changed, my focus changed, my energy levels changed. And then, if I'm being really honest, there were some family struggles and the mental and emotional weight that came with them that took a real bite out of my motivation. So when I say getting back is hard, I'm not saying that academically. I'm saying that because I lived it. I know what it's like to remember being better at something. I know what it's like to compare your current self to a version of you that had different circumstances. I know what it's like to think, man, I used to be able to just go out and do this. And I know what it's like for that thought to become heavy enough that it makes starting again feel even harder. Sometimes our past success becomes a barrier, not because success is bad, but because we use it as the standard for whether today's effort counts. If I can't run like I used to, why bother? If I can't lift or train 5 days a week, why bother? That all or nothing mindset will rob you blind. It takes that 20-minute walk or easy jog that you did, or the light lifting or mobility session, and that I didn't even want to get out there, but I did something today attitude. And it tells you none of that counts. But it does count. It absolutely counts, especially when you're rebuilding. Look, one of my favorite ideas comes from Craig Alexander, my favorite professional triathlete. A lot of people know him as Crowy. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the idea is basically this: start every workout. You can always switch to plan B. You can always cut it short. You can dial it back if you need to, or turn your run into a walk. You can turn that hard session into an easy session, but start, because sometimes you'll feel better than you thought you would. And even when you don't, you still did something that matters physically, but it also matters mentally. You're proving one small action at a time that you're not stuck. And when you're trying to get your groove back, that little bit of momentum is gold. Now, I'm not saying let's make a motivational poster about middle-aged guy remembers to hydrate. What I'm saying is that some days you start the workout and realize your body just isn't having it. Your sleep was bad, your shift was rough, your stress is high, your legs feel like they're full of cement. Fine. Go to plan B. Training sane means you don't need to punish yourself into wellness. You're allowed to adapt. And actually, you're not just allowed to adapt, you need to adapt. That's part of the job. That's part of aging well. That's part of staying in the game. Now, for me, two things help. First, I respond to competition. And second, I respond to the feeling that I'm being watched. Now, I realize now that that probably sounds a little weird, but my point is accountability changes behavior and competition changes behavior. Social pressure changes behavior. This year, I found a phone app that gamifies running in a way that hits both of those buttons for me. It makes the experience I have more engaging, more competitive, and more visible. And that's helped a lot. Not because the app is magic, but because it works with my patterns. And that's the point. If you know you're competitive, use that. If you know you need accountability, use that. If you know you're more likely to train when someone is expecting you, create that expectation. If you know you're going to jump on your stationary bike, if there's a show you only watch while you're riding, use that. If you know you'll walk farther listening to a podcast, use that. If you know that laying out your clothes the night before your workout removes one more excuse, do that. It's not cheating, that is tactics. Again, firefighters use tools. We don't show up to a structure fire and say, real firefighters don't need hose lines. I'm just going to hustle harder. No, we use the right tool for the job. Fitness habits are the same way. So if you're trying to get back on the wagon, here are the questions I'd rather you ask before going shopping for a perfect program. What changed when I stopped? Was it my schedule? Was I injured? Was I burned out? Was it family stress or emotional fatigue? Was it a job change? Was it sleep? Was it boredom? Was it that the routine became too complicated or the workouts were too long? Was it that I only got out there to train when I felt motivated and had no plan B? Was it that I stopped enjoying what I was doing? Was it that my identity was tied to being good at it? And once I wasn't good at it anymore, I didn't want to face it. That last one hits home for me. And it's a little spicy, but it's real. Sometimes we avoid the thing because we don't want proof that we've slipped. We don't want our watch to tell us that we're slower, which mine does every single run now. We don't want the number of weights on the barbell to tell us that we're weaker or the stairs to tell us that we're breathing harder. But avoiding the truth doesn't protect your confidence, it just delays your comeback. And the truth, treated properly, is not insulting, it's information, it's your size up. And once you size it up, you can make a plan. And maybe your plan is two 20-minute strength sessions a week. Maybe it's walking for 15 minutes after shift. Maybe it's a walk run program or stretching before bed. Maybe it's getting back to the gym, but with lighter weights than your ego would want. And maybe it's doing less than what you think you should do, just so you can actually keep doing it. That's not lowering the bar, that's painting a starting line. Look, the long game is not built on the occasional grind, hustle, hero effort. It's built on efforts that you can consistently repeat. It's built on small wins that are stacked time and time again. You showed up twice this week. Win. You walked outside even though you didn't feel like it. Win. You lifted lighter than what you wanted to, but you felt good afterwards. Win. You cut the workout short instead of quitting completely, but you started it. Win. You started looking forward to movement again. Big win. The whole point here is not getting back to where your 25-year-old self could work out. Now, if that happens, congratulations. And also, please share whatever secret time machine you've been using. But for most of us, that's not the point. No, the point is building the strength, the stamina, the resilience, and the confidence that we need for the job we have now and the life that we want outside of it. So if you've been telling yourself, I'm out of shape, I want you to try a different phrase. I'm deconditioned. That is more accurate and it's more useful. It leaves the door open for improvement. You're not a crushed soda can in the parking lot. You're not scrap metal. You're not done. You may need to be reconditioned. You may need to start smaller than you want. You may need to stop recommitting yourself to an old routine and build one that actually fits your current life. You may need to take a hard look and identify the pattern that broke the old habit before you try to rebuild it. But you can do something. An old friend of mine used to quote, I forget who it was, and I'm paraphrasing this, but it goes something like this. Whatever you're thinking of starting, do it because action has magic and power to it. That first step might not look impressive and it might not be worthy of an Instagram post, and it may not satisfy your ego, but it creates momentum. It's got power. And momentum is usually what motivation is waiting on. So here's my challenge for you this week. Don't try to design the perfect comeback. Don't spend 3 days researching the optimal program, and don't wait until Monday, unless today actually is Monday, in which case, congratulations, you're out of excuses. Just start moving again. Take a walk or do a few sets of push ups against the kitchen counter. Ride a bike for 10 minutes or walk up and down the stairs a few times. Stretch. Do something so manageable that it almost feels too easy, and then ask yourself, what made it easier to start? What made it harder? What pattern do I need to work with instead of ignoring it? That's training sane. That's the long game. That's longevity. That's how we get back on the wagon without turning the whole thing into another guilt spiral. And if you need help thinking through that, reach out. You don't have to be ready to hire a coach, and I don't nickel and dime people for basic advice, especially fellow first responders. Sometimes you just need an extra set of eyes to help you sort the problem out, find the pattern, and choose that next step. This episode was based on an article I wrote called Getting Back on the Wagon. You can read it at my Substack at agingwellfirefighter.com. If this kind of conversation is used to you, make sure you go there and subscribe. That's where I write more about fitness, stress, resilience, longevity, and training sane for first responders, our families, and the communities we serve. Because the goal here is not to grind ourselves into the ground. The goal is to stay useful, capable, and well for as long as we can. Getting started is hard, and getting started again is harder. But you can start, you can adapt, you can recondition and get back to useful function. Maybe not by pushing the same boulder up the same hill again. Maybe by finally asking whether there's a better way up the hill. Train sane, play the long game, and, as always, fight wisely and age bravely.